Yes guys, welcome back to the channel. I bet you weren't expecting to see me this soon. Well, that's because I've scheduled this video for Sunday when I'm actually on my mini moon, but I made this last week because I just love making content for you guys. It brings me a lot of joy, but also it helped take my mind off wedding planning. It's very stressful at times and it's important to get out of that headspace and refocus on something else for a period of time, because otherwise you can get a bit too stuck in your head and it can get very, very stressful, and we don't need that right now. I just want to enjoy my day and enjoy the mini moon. So as you receive this, I will be probably by the sea and hopefully enjoying some good weather. So let's talk about global hair care tips. I'm looking at hair systems in this video from a global perspective, because it's not something I've done enough. Hair systems aren't just worn by men in the UK and men in America. Hair systems are worn by people in Turkey, Fiji, a country which I lived in for a period of time, China, India, the South America, Europe, and I've neglected all of this population, which I shouldn't have done. So it's important to take a wider approach to hair systems and how they can be affected by different climates. So firstly, I'm going to focus on, hot conditions, humid and hot conditions, because that always induces more sweating, and obviously sweat can loosen the bond between the system and your scalp a lot quicker than if you're not sweating. This will be helpful, especially if you go to the gym or you sauna a lot and you find that you're having to rebond your system quite often. Now, if you go to the gym, what I would recommend is probably trying to get a headband. I got this idea from actually a lady with alopecia on TikTok she's got full alopecia and she wears a wig and she looks fantastic with the wig. But when she's in the gym or swimming, she wears like a headband. And guys can wear headbands as well. It's not a problem. So maybe if you go to the gym, whack a headband around sort of like here, around where the hairline lands, and it'll keep the system, or the base of the system, pressed against your scalp, and it shouldn't weaken the bond no matter how much you sweat. Another thing you might want to consider is getting a strong bond, a strong adhesive, as long as your skin can take it, can tolerate it. Now, I don't usually recommend that on my channel. However, in this circumstance, if you live in a hot climate where you're sweating a lot, something like Walker's Ultra Hold might be beneficial for you. It may be more beneficial for you than Ghost Bond, which is what I use, or Great White. It just has a greater hold, and you may find that you're not redoing the bond every couple of weeks. Another consideration is to just accept that you probably will have more lifts, and you probably will have to rebond more often than someone who lives in a cooler climate who doesn't sweat or perspire as much. And don't be hard on yourself about that, because it's not your fault. It's due to the climate. It's not something that you're doing wrong. I see so many guys in the hair system community who are really hard on themselves, and that's why I did that video on perfectionism, which I'm going to put up at the end of this video so you can watch that with some tips on how to sort of navigate that and get around it. We're far too hard on ourselves, and we needn't be, especially when there's situations or conditions that are out of our control. So yes, you probably will get some more lifts. Yes, you probably will have to, rebond more often, but it's not your fault. So in summary, if you go to the gym, try and wear a headband or a do-rag even. If you feel comfortable wearing a do-rag, a headband is probably more preferable and socially acceptable. Also, make sure that you use a stronger bond than maybe I do, which is a Ghost Bond. Give Walker Ultra Hold a go if you live in a very hot climate, and see how you get on with it. You can use their tape as well. Ultra Hold do a tape. Give it a go, give it a trial. And then lastly, just being kind to yourself and accepting that it's not your fault if you have more lifts and you have to do a full rebond more often. It's not your fault, it's just the conditions that you live in. Now I'm going to talk about sort of tropical climates. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I lived in Fiji for a decent period of time, and I worked there about 14 years ago. I didn't have a hair system at that time, but I was thinking about this the other day and how I would have dealt with having a hair system when I was there, and I definitely would have had to do more rebonds, because in Fiji and other tropical climates, it pretty much rains every single day. And over time, that, especially if you're a lace like me, it will get through the system and it does loosen the bond over time. And you can't be I suppose as aggressive with sort of putting your hair up and stuff like that, because the bond is loosened and it's likely to give you lifts. So it might be wise, if you live in that climate, to have your hair down more often than having it up, because the bond at the front will probably weaken. And if you get caught in the rain when you're just out shopping, bearing in mind it rains pretty much most days, it might just be more helpful to have it down, because if you have it up and it gets a lift, people might notice, they may well not. As I mentioned in a previous video, people are more obsessed with what's going on in their lives than, or more concerned with what's going on in their lives than what's going on in your lives. So again, a stronger bond as well might be more appropriate, something that you can tolerate but it's fairly firm. So ultra hold again could be a good shout. Another consideration for tropical regions is it tends to rain at around the same time every day. I don't know why, but every single day it would rain at around the same time. And if you can avoid that period of time when it is likely to rain, also you're going to be getting a lot of sunshine as well as rain. And this is the same with humid and hot climates. Make sure you wear a hat, guys, when you're out. Make sure you wear a hat. It's a really important consideration, a really important tip which I always underline to all of my subscribers. And lastly, for the sort of colder climates, a climate which I kind of live in, which is the UK. In winter it gets really quite cold. You don't really have to worry about winter. I wouldn't add any considerations in terms of hair care tips for then. But in the summer, it does get quite hot. We get it upwards of, we get upwards of 95 to 100 Fahrenheit on a hot summer day. So on those kind of days, those periods of time, wearing a hat is a really good idea. I seem to do okay with Ghost Bond, even though it's hot and I do sweat a lot. My skin tends to get on okay with Ghost Bond. I do get less time though out of the bond, and I do get more lifts, which is why I mentioned it in the hot and humid part of the video. So guys, what's your experience been? Are there any hair care tips that you'd like to share? Please let us know in the comments box below. It's always great to have a conversation with you guys, because it's not just you guys learning from me, I learn from you guys as well. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And I promise that as this channel gets bigger and bigger and bigger, I'm going to make this content better and better and better. And that's a promise. Till next time, guys. Bye for now.